The cafeteria buzzed with chatter, papers rustled, and parents leaned over desks nervously. But when Daniel Harris, a 34-year-old single dad, walked into parent-teacher night holding his daughter Emily's tiny hand, the room seemed to pause. Whispers floated, "He's alone again." Daniel straightened his shoulders, trying to look unbothered. Then Emily's teacher stood up, her voice trembling as she said something that made the whole room fall silent and left Daniel breathless. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Daniel wasn't prepared for the spotlight that night. He only wanted to hear how Emily, 7 years old with wide blue eyes and a sketchbook always tucked under her arm, was doing in class. He had worked 2 jobs that week. Mechanic by day, delivery driver by night, barely catching 3 hours of sleep. But he showed up. He always showed up, Mr. Harris, said Mrs. Carter, Emily's teacher, her eyes locking on him across the room. Parents were mid-conversation, but her voice cut through like glass. "Can you stand for a moment?" Confused, Daniel rose slowly, every nerve on edge. Emily squeezed his hand, whispering, "Daddy, it's okay." Mrs. Carter held up a drawing Emily had turned in. Crayons pressed hard into the paper. It wasn't a house or a sun or a rainbow like the others. It was Emily standing beside Daniel at a car garage, her father's hands covered in grease, her tiny arms holding out a sandwich. At the top, she had written, "My hero." The teacher's voice cracked. "In 20 years of teaching, I've never had a student write something like this." Emily didn't draw a princess or a castle. She drew her father. She said, "My dad doesn't have much, but he gives me everything." Guests rippled through the room. Some parents lowered their eyes, ashamed of the whispers they'd made earlier. Daniel froze, his throat tightening. He wanted to speak, but his voice betrayed him. The only sound that came out was a sharp breath. Mrs. Carter wasn't finished. "And when I asked Emily what she wished for, if she had one magic wish, she said, 'I'd wish for my dad to get a real night's sleep.'" The silence was unbearable. Then an older parent, Mr. Reed, cleared his throat. "That's something, Daniel. Not every kid talks about their parents like that." Daniel swallowed hard, fighting emotion. "I just do what any father should." His voice was steady, but his chest burned. For the first time that evening, the room didn't see a single dad struggling. They saw a man holding his world together with calloused hands and sleepless nights. And when Mrs. Carter reached into her desk and slid a sealed envelope across the table toward him, Daniel knew something bigger was about to unfold. Daniel stared at the envelope like it was a live wire. His palms itched to rip it open, but he hesitated. Emily leaned against him, her tiny frame pressed into his side. "Daddy," she whispered. "What's in it?" "I don't know." "Sweetheart." His voice cracked more than he wanted it to. Room buzzing only moments before had gone deathly quiet. Even the parents who had spent the evening exchanging smug smiles at Daniel's rumpled work shirt and calloused hands were frozen, eyes fixed on the envelope. Mrs. Carter's voice softened. "Mr. Harris, this isn't something I usually do during parent-teacher night, but I think it's time. Open it." Daniel slid his rough thumb under the flap. Inside was a letter handwritten, not typed. He read the first line and the words, not the breath from his lungs. "Mr. Harris, I've watched Emily grow this year. She is bright, creative, and kind, but she carries the weight of your exhaustion. No child should have to worry if their father is too tired to wake up tomorrow. I don't know your whole story, but I do know this. You are raising her with more love than most parents combined. That's why I nominated her for the district scholarship program. Daniel's eyes widened. His knees nearly buckled. Scholarship, he muttered. Mrs. Carter nodded. A full academic scholarship, private tutoring, mentorship, supplies, even access to enrichment programs she could never afford otherwise. It's competitive. And I wasn't supposed to reveal anything yet. But Emily's essay, it broke me. It wasn't about herself, it was about you. Gasps fluttered through the room again. A mother in a pearl necklace whispered to her husband. She wrote about her father. Daniel couldn't speak. His chest felt heavy, his throat locked. He blinked rapidly, but the tears burned anyway. Emily tugged at his sleeve, her big eyes glistening. Does this mean I can get books? Like real art books? Daniel dropped to one knee, his hand trembling as it cuped her cheek. Yeah, baby. Real books, the kind you've always wanted. Mrs. Carter placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Daniel, I see you every morning when you drop her off. The dark circles, the way you rush off to the garage. I know you don't complain, but your daughter notices. She told me once that she brings her sandwich to the shop because sometimes you forget to eat. The shame hit him like a gut punch, but then came the pride because Emily wasn't embarrassed of him. She was proud. One father at the back, a tall man in a pressed suit, scoffed. So what? A scholarship doesn't change the fact that he's barely making it. You think one free ride will cover the rest of her life? Daniel turned, his jaw tightening. He wanted to snap back to remind this man that some people measured wealth in love, not dollars. But before he could speak, Mrs. Carter's eyes flashed. You're wrong, she said firmly. Because sometimes all it takes is one opportunity. And when you give it to the right child, with the right parent backing them, it changes everything. Her words struck Daniel harder than any insult. Because for the first time in years, he saw a door cracking open for Emily. A door he thought had been welded shut by circumstance. The principal, who had been silent in the corner until now, cleared his throat. Mr. Harris, I'd like to add something. He adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. We've also been discussing starting a parent advisory board. Someone who represents the working class families in this district. Too often only the wealthy have a voice. Would you consider joining? Daniel blinked. Me. His voice was incredulous. Sir, I am just a mechanic. The principal shook his head. No, you're a father who shows up. That's what matters. And your perspective is exactly what this school needs. Emily's hand slipped into his. Daddy, you'd be like. A superhero for the parents. That drew a ripple of laughter. Softer this time, not mocking, but genuine. Daniel's face flushed. But deep down something shifted. For so long, he had walked into rooms feeling smaller, out of place. But tonight, standing under the fluorescent lights with his daughter's hand in his, he felt seen. Still, and not twisted in his gut, because opportunity came with fear. The fear that he would fail her, that he couldn't live up to the faith this teacher and principal were placing in him. After the meeting, as the crowd thinned, Mrs. Carter pulled him aside. Daniel, there's one more thing. He braced himself. She handed him a plain envelope, heavier than the first. It's from the PTA fund. We've raised money for struggling families this year. It isn't much, but it might take a little pressure off you. He opened it and froze. Inside were grocery gift cards, gas vouchers, and even a prepaid card for clothing stores. I can't take this, he whispered, his pride whirring with the relief flooding his chest. You can, Mrs. Carter said firmly, because this isn't charity, it's recognition. You've given Emily more love and resilience than money ever could. Now, let us give you both a chance to breathe. Daniel's hands shook as he gripped the envelope. He wanted to argue, but Emily's hopeful eyes stopped him. "Daddy, does this mean no more skipping dinners?" The dam broke. He pulled her into his arms, his voice muffled against her hair. "No more skipping, baby girl. I promise." Behind him, a few parents who had once whispered against him now watched in silence, some with shame, others with admiration. They saw not a man beaten down by life, but a father standing taller than all of them, and not because of wealth, but because of devotion. As Daniel left the school that night, the cool air brushing against his face, he realized something profound. For years, he had believed his worth was tied to what he could provide in dollars. But tonight, Emily reminded him his worth was in the love he gave. The nights he stayed awake, the lunches he skipped so she could eat asterisk. And for the first time, Daniel wasn't breathless from exhaustion. He was breathless from hope. What he didn't know, though, was that the real shock was still coming, because someone in that room, someone with more power than he could imagine, had been listening closely. And they weren't done with Daniel Harris yet. The night air was cool as Daniel carried Emily's backpack in one hand and held her tiny fingers in the other. His boots scraped the sidewalk, his mind still reeling from the scholarship letter and the unexpected kindness. For the first time in months, his chest didn't feel so heavy. But as they reached his rusty pickup truck, someone called out, "Mr. Harris." Daniel turned. It was the man in the expensive suit, the same one who had scoffed earlier in the meeting. He was striding toward him, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. Daniel braced himself, ready for more condescension. Instead, the man extended his hand. "Name's Richard Collins. I owe you an apology." Daniel hesitated but shook it. "Why is that?" Richard cleared his throat, his voice quieter now. "I've got 2 kids at this school. I throw money at them. Private tutors, piano lessons, the works. But tonight, hearing your daughter talk about you, it made me realize money doesn't buy devotion. You've got something I don't." Daniel blinked, stunned. "I'm just trying to get by." "No," Richard said firmly. "You're doing more than that. You're showing up, and that's rarer than people think." Before Daniel could respond, Richard pulled out a card. "I run a small logistics company. We're looking for someone to manage fleet maintenance. Steady hours, better pay, health benefits. I don't know if you're interested, but consider it." Daniel froze, the card trembling between his fingers. "Why me?" Richard gave a tight smile. "Because tonight I saw a man who won't quit. That's the kind of person I want on my team." Emily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Daddy, does this mean you could be home for dinner more?" Daniel's throat constricted. He crouched down, looking her in the eyes. "Maybe, baby girl, maybe." He pocketed the card, not ready to believe it fully. But the possibility alone made his heart pound. The following week, Daniel's life shifted in small but undeniable ways. Emily bounced through the front door each afternoon with stories of her scholarship prepped. New books, new projects, new hope lighting her eyes. And though Daniel still dragged himself to the garage each morning, Richard's offer haunted him like a beacon. One night, while Daniel was tightening a bolt under a sputtering engine, his phone buzzed. It was an email from Richard. A formal job offer, salary 3 times what he earned now. Health insurance, paid time off. The words blurred as his eyes welled up. He thought of Emily's wish, the one she had written in her essay. For my dad to get a real night's sleep, and for the first time in years, it seemed possible. 2 weeks later, Daniel walked into parent-teacher night again, this time for a follow-up meeting. He wore a clean shirt, freshly pressed. His boots were still worn, but they were polished. And Emily, skipping beside him, beamed like she owned the hallway. The whispers were gone. Instead, parents greeted him with nods, some with genuine smiles. Mrs. Carter caught his eye, her face softening with quiet pride. "Mr. Harris," she said warmly, "I hear congratulations are in order." Daniel shifted awkwardly. "Word gets around fast." "It does," she smiled. "And Emily's been glowing. She told me last week my dad's going to sleep now." "For real?" Daniel's chest tightened, but this time it wasn't from exhaustion or shame. It was from gratitude. As the evening wrapped up, Emily tugged at his arm. "Daddy, can we stop for ice cream? You're not working tonight, right?" Daniel knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No, baby, I'm not working tonight." The words felt foreign on his tongue. But oh, how good they felt. They left the school under the glow of the street lamps, laughter spilling between them. For once, the night wasn't heavy. It was theirs. But the story didn't end there. Because one act of kindness, Mrs. Carter nominating Emily, the PTA stepping in, Richard offering a chance, had ignited something bigger. Daniel realized that the world wasn't always cruel. Sometimes it held out a hand when you least expected it. And Emily, who once wished for her father's rest, now carried a different dream to one day give back the same way her teacher and her school had given to her. Daniel squeezed her hand, the promise unspoken but clear. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were building a future. For the first time in years, Daniel Harris was not breathless from fear. He was breathless from possibility. And that night, as Emily drifted to sleep with her sketchbook clutched to her chest, Daniel sat by the window staring at the stars. He whispered to himself almost in disbelief, "We made it, kiddo. We finally made it."